Hey gente, how are y'all? Welcome back to my channel. Be who you are for your pride. If you caught that reference, love you. Happy Pride. It is in fact already June 3rd, but I'm finally recording my May reading wrap up. I feel like May was a really good reading month for me. I was telling my book club girls that for some reason when summer starts and the weather starts getting heinous in Texas, my reading brain capacity goes up by 20 levels, and I feel like I want to read every single book that I see in my vicinity ever. And the 17 books that I read in May compared to like 3 when I was recovering from my bariatric surgery in like March or something. Actually, I lied. March I actually read a good amount, but February, which was like the main month recovering from my bariatric surgery, I only read like 5, and like 3 of them I think were comfort rereads by Kimberly Lemon. Yeah, that was the month that I was like, I feel like my brain is not locked in for reading. But I felt like May I was, especially with, you'll see, the brand new series that I started and have been devouring. I have plenty of thoughts in all of them, so let's start. Best way to go about it is maybe do chronological order, because then I can explain to y'all where my mind was at when I read what book during the month, especially because I feel like, and maybe everybody says that about themselves, but I feel like I'm the moodiest reader to ever mood read ever. And yes, I'm very dramatic if you haven't noticed, and me explaining the mood that I was in with every book kind of makes sense to me. So I started the month with A Pack for Autumn and A Pack for Spring. I did read A Pack for Winter, but I think it was last month, I think beginning of April, and it was kind of like my introduction to Omegaverse. I had obviously heard about it, but I was a little intimidated just because of the different contexts that Omegaverse could be in. I feel like everything that I was listening about Omegaverse was always in different contexts. Like there's sometimes Omegaverse werewolf shifter, sometimes Omegaverse with regular humans, but like the Omegaverse politics, I guess, of like the hierarchy between alpha, omegas, and betas and stuff like that. But I felt like if anything, if anybody is interested in Omegaverses but don't know where to start, this would actually be a good start to it. I feel like it's very rom-com contemporary, especially because it is waichu, so they all end up with a pack, obviously, and it is the beloved standalone, like interconnected standalone series where the 4 best friends actually, the 4th one is about to come out I think this month, which I'm really excited for. The 4 best friends are all omegas. You get to see them finding their happily ever after. It's very much like millennial humor sometimes. There's a Felix, a cat who's the mayor of the city. It's very like small town, quirky personalities all put together in a lovely spicy time. I love them all individually. I did give A Pack for Autumn 4 stars compared to A Pack for Winter, which was 3.75. I'm just including here even though I didn't read it in May because I'm talking about the series either way. And A Pack for Spring I did 3.5. I felt like A Pack for Spring was a little disjointed. Like I really didn't feel the connection within the characters as much as I felt the connection within the characters of the other books more, like A Pack for Winter and A Pack for Autumn. I think A Pack for Autumn for me was even better because the FMC is very much a loner by herself. I feel like she had to be so independent throughout her whole life, and you get a little bit of all of their personalities and how they got to be the way that they are little by little throughout the book, which I love. I feel like sometimes, especially in waichu's romances, a lot of authors just add a bunch of people and then don't really explore their history well enough for you to understand how they are the way that they are. And I feel like both of these authors, which is another thing, the series is by 2 different authors, which is interesting. I feel like I don't really remember reading any specific series of interconnected standalones where 2 authors or more than one author writes them. I was afraid that was gonna make the series too separate. Like I was afraid that I was gonna, like, as soon as I started reading one author, I would be like, okay, this is definitely not the same author that wrote the first book of The Other Friend, you know? I didn't feel that way. The authors made a good job at still making it coherent, even if they are about different characters and different people. As I said on the first one, A Pack for Autumn, I really liked how she was the one avoidant. Not to say that one of the guys wasn't also avoidant and grumpy and like protective as hell, but also just grunted every time he wasn't like happy with something, which he was. But I feel like it's interesting when a female main character is the avoidant and is super hyper independent and starts to see how beneficial and like heartwarming it is to have other people in her life. And I feel like the 3 guys make a really good pack and like all add something to the pack that she needed but didn't know she needed. This whole series, to be honest, is very romantic. I feel like all the guys, when they're courting their omegas, are so deeply intentional with everything they do, in which I feel like, not to say that I know anything about Omegaverse, because this is my first Omegaverse series, but I feel like it's very part of the culture of courting Omegas and beginning a pack and being intentional about beginning a pack, you know? If at least this series is anything to go by, I think the same thing for A Pack for Winter. The first introduction to like Omegas going into heat, or at least this Omega going into heat, and Alpha's helping, and Beta being kind of like the beta guy in this series, in this Pack for Winter, being like the middle ground of like the alphas and the omegas, and trying to protect both parties but still being included in the best way. I love that scene, especially because that scene ended up being so unexpected for me because of the location. Like, it's in the school where they're kind of like forced proximity together, working together. At least the Omega and the female main character and one of the main characters, they're brought there for some like dumb reason about fish and you'll understand why, because it's like she's a teacher, an elementary teacher, and she has fish for her students for the first time, and one of the guys, the beta, is also a veterinarian of the town. So it's like they get together in a storm, and then she gets into heat, and you get introduced to all of these things, which I also really appreciated, because I feel like the author made a good job at explaining what was happening, like for anybody that's Omegaverse fresh, which I was starting that book. So I liked it. I think it's very, if you're a mood reader that likes reading books with the season, if that makes sense, like the autumn, the winter, and now the spring, A Pack for Spring and A Pack for Summer that's coming out this month, do a really good job at putting you in that mood. I'm not the type of mood reader that reads with the season. I'm the type of mood reader that reads whatever mood I'm in. I'm in that week and that day, to be honest with you. But if you are, I feel like these are great. A Pack for Spring was most likely, like, so far, because I haven't read A Pack for Summer, my least liked. I feel like she was very like a little too superficial, the FMC, too happy-go-lucky with everything, even though there was a little like hints of complexity to her character that I feel like wasn't really explored, if that makes sense. I feel like there's a little bit of miscommunication that I loved how it was treated. The guys just came through with the truth and like making sure that they, even though it wasn't their fault necessarily, was something that they did, but she still felt abandoned, if that makes sense. And it was just a miscommunication, like something happened. It was like a bad coincidence that everything happened at the same time and she felt lonely, which it was valid for her to feel that way, but I feel like that could have ended in a really bad miscommunication. She would just avoid the topic, and the guys also didn't make an effort to actually explain, and that didn't happen. Like, they made an effort to explain everything that happened, that made an effort to validate her feelings and still grovel and still make up for the fact that she felt lonely and like by herself, even if it wasn't necessarily their fault, which I really appreciated. So yeah, I feel like if you're new to Omegaverse, this is a really good series to start with. Don't go thinking it's gonna be absolutely transformational, but if you want good found family, if you want a good like small town feel, you're gonna love this. It's very cozy, it's very like fast-paced and spicy, which is really good. I'm really looking forward for a pack for Summon coming out this month. She has been the friend that's always like, oh, dump him, or like, I hate men type of friend, and we've seen a little hints of like her looking at so lovingly at the other friends having packs and the guys coming through for them, and her not having that love within her life, that I feel like it's going to be really interesting to see how her hyper independence also battles with her want to be loved and love other people and have that feeling for a pack, because I feel like from what I understood of Omegaverse and Omega specifically, they need that sense of belonging. Omegas are the glue of the pack. They're treated as such, which I loved. Spoiled and loved by everybody, and that's very much right up my alley. I then read Pucking Strong by Emily Rath. This is actually the fourth book, I think, of the Jacksonville Rays. If you know anything about me, last year I saw the light with White Shoes Romances, and I read Pucking Around for the first time, and it actually absolutely changed my life, actually, because it was such a good introduction to contemporary White Chooses. A good example of another author that actually writes complex characters and actually explores them, even though there's a bunch of different characters for you to explore in any White Choose romances. But this one actually wasn't a White Choose. This is a romance, and it's a marriage of convenience, and you'll understand, and like kind of single dad, even though he's an uncle. This is not a spoiler because I feel like it happens pretty, yeah, it's in the back of the book too. It happens pretty early on, but Henrik, who's this like Viking hockey god actually gets horrible news where his sister passes away and in a tragic car accident, and his little niece was actually in the car but survived, albeit with like trauma and some like scrapes and bruises. And the new PT doctor, Teddy O'Connor, that has been crushing on this Viking god for a while, kind of like volunteers himself to help him recover and deal with a tragic death. And they obviously have to fly to where Henrik is from, which is Sweden actually, and be together. And then in some way, shape, or form, they end up in a forced marriage, like a marriage of convenience. And it was so good. I dare to say it was a 5 stars. And I dare to say, I remember thinking this, it healed a little bit, like it filled the hole that heated rivalry left. Even if temporarily, but I feel like this was beautiful. The representation of queer romance was beautiful. To see how society in this world grew from the beginning of the series, of like first hockey players coming out as gay or bisexual or being in a polyamorous relationship, to them being just like, yeah, we're together, now what? Like, deal with it type of thing, was so refreshing. I loved it. If you want a really nice queer romance and you want something to heal your heart, even temporarily, from heated rivalry, I think this is a good idea. The found family in this is also really good. You get cameos of all the other couples, which I always love to see. It's almost like going to a family reunion and your best friend cousin is there and you haven't seen them in a while, but you just fall back to that relationship, that goofy like found family relationship. It's exactly what this felt like. I can't wait to continue reading the series because I feel like there's so many opportunities for so many other people in the series to have books too. Can't wait. I then fell in the rabbit hole of ZODIAC Academy. To be completely honest with you, I had no idea that I was going so deep into the series and I would be absolutely fully committed by the end of the month when I started this. I did get the indie version in my like local half price books, which I was really interested in, but I will say the audiobook, because I always do immersive read because I love it. I feel betrayed. Ow, I just got a freaking paper cut. That hurt. Bitch. What was I saying before you cut me? Right, as I was saying, I do usually immersive read, so you can bet your ass most of these I immersive read because it's such a better experience. But I will say, when the audiobook, it's still the indie version, if that makes sense, especially on the spicy scenes, which I thought it was hilarious that they changed the specific spicy scenes. They added more explicit content in the publisher edition, and even on the Kindle Unlimited books too. I kept like trying to see if there was a difference between the audio, the publisher version, and the Kindle version, and there definitely is. They added more explicit words and a little bit more on the spicy scenes on the ebook and the paperback, like the regular publisher version now, and that is not on the audio and on the indie version. I will say I only have the indie version of the first one, so I'm not sure if the other, actually no, because I remember reading with the audio and the ebook on like book 2 and 3, and they do actually happen the same thing. Like the explicit words that they added to the paperback and the ebook are not on the audio, so I would think it's also not on the indie versions of the rest of the books and the rest of the series. So all of that to say, I would say if you want a little bit more explicit content, like it's not necessarily that big of a deal, but I think I would always like especially with so little explicit scenes we get from the first a couple books, because it is very much a bully romance, so you don't get much explicit content at first. I'll take what I can get, okay? I'll take anything and everything that they give me. But I guess I should explain this series to you first before I tell you about all the explicit scenes that this book does or does not have. So this is about twin sisters that are Geminis. It is a Zodiac Academy, so there's somewhat of like inclusion of zodiacs and star signs and connections to the moon, the sun, and everything else, which I didn't think it was ever done at all. Like, as a person that is not that much into astrology, other than like I'm very much a Leo and that's all I know. I was also a little afraid of that it was gonna be like, oh, you know zodiacs, right? So of course this character acts that way. I didn't think it was like that at all, but it is somewhat related to how the characters act, but they do explain everything, which I thought it was highly appreciated as somebody that doesn't know much about astrology. So they are twins, Tori and Darcy Vega. They are humans, but they've all of a sudden discovered in the beginning of the first one that they aren't humans, but they're actually fae, and they have been invited to go to ZODIAC Academy, which is basically, from what I remember, it's kind of like Hogwarts but for adults, with a little bit of bully romance sprinkled in there. I feel like, especially with the first one, the bully is a little hard to get through. As somebody that does not like bully romance at all, the first one was like, bro, I hate these people. How the hell am I going to continue the series? But it's the kind of thing that I'm like, ew, this sucks. Let me see what the next book's talking about, though. Let me keep going. And then you're like, oh my gosh, wait, I think these people are going to end up with these people, or this character is actually going to end up together with this character, or maybe this character is going to end up absolutely by themselves because they're suck ass right now and they're bullying and they did something horrible and I would never give them for this. But then you keep reading and you're like, bro, this is kind of cringy, but this is so interesting because, again, like I said, is very much Hogwarts for adults with explicit scenes, with the twins discovering this whole new world. Like, you're a wizard, Harry. Like, you're a fae, Tori and Darcy, and you're actually pretty powerful, and you actually have all the elements, because with the zodiac sign, they get not assigned, but like they discover their elements as soon as they get admitted to the academy, which is obviously fire, earth, water, or air. And the more you have, obviously if you have more than one, which is very rare, the more powerful you are. It's very much ruthless. It's very much like bullying galore. Like, people get hazed all the time. The bullying kind of makes sense because of how fae are, like how the hierarchy of that society is and how ruthless the community is by default. So at first you're like, what the hell are you doing? But at the same time, you experience it through human eyes at first, because the twins are very much human until they discover themselves as fae and discover more parts of themselves that they align with being fae or not. And you see them relying more on the humanity first and then becoming even more fae. And that's a point of contention throughout this like whole series, at least so far. Ruthless fae definitely gets a little bit better because they start fighting back. They start, like I said, relying more on their power that they just now discovered, but become even stronger, like class by class. I really say Harry Potter because you do, like, they are not short books, especially the more you get into the series, the longer they are, the thicker they are. But I feel like it definitely makes sense because you're so, after the first and second book, you become so invested in how this is going to play out and who's going to end up with who, and also individually, like how much of themselves the characters Tori and Darcy specifically, but not necessarily just them, the heirs too, the four main heirs, the four main male main characters that have been bullying them and have been, before the twins got back to the Fae world, have been given everything, but also been forced to be the heirs of the throne, the heirs of the Fae society, and put into this pedestal, not only of like, oh my god, the heirs are amazing, but also like, you have to be the most powerful. You cannot show weakness. You walk into the room like you belong there no matter what. Which I feel like is very interesting to see them being pegged down a couple notches by the twins, especially on the second one. I love how they started fighting back. I loved how they came into that power, and you follow along their magical journey just like in Hogwarts. Like Hogwarts and Harry Potter, there's Quidditch, they have Pitball, and it's so funny. I will say Twisted Sisters, the sisters that are the authors of Zodiac Academy, Carolyn Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, they have a very specific type of humor. Like, it's not for everyone. I don't think it is kind of cringy sometimes, and that's okay, to be honest with you. Like, it's very much, I think the girls were saying like Pretty Little Liars, Hogwarts combination type of thing. I would know, because to be honest, I've never seen Pretty Little Liars. Don't come at me. It wasn't something that was interesting when I was younger, but I was really into Harry Potter. So it's very much like you go to classes with them and you see them working through finals and like trying to explore their magic more, and not just because they're thrown in there and they came from a horrible human experience where they were in the system as orphans, so they went from like house that didn't want them to another house that didn't want them, and just thrown around to finally somewhere where they felt like they were respected, even if they were being bullied by the heirs. But There's the Ass Club, which is a horrible name, which they talk about and make jokes about all the freaking time, because it's the, wait, what does Ass Club stand for? I forgot. Geraldine, please be nice to me. I forgot what ass stands for. Geraldine is the main Ass Club president? Yes, here we go. I just googled because I wasn't gonna find it. It's the Almighty Sovereign Society, and it spells ass. And for the longest time, you don't think she gets it, but then obviously she does. But she's just so outrageously funny and so quirky. The main like president of the Ass Club, which is ends up to be one of the best friends of the twins, Geraldine. This is the fan art that I found for her, which is like Alona Mayer meets a really hot buffed girl that is just chaotic and quirky as hell, and she like loves it, and she is not afraid of that, and she doesn't make excuses for it. She just keeps being quirky. I love it. It's so funny. But again, it's not for everybody. I understand that, and if that's not for you, that's totally fine. It is for me though, like especially as someone that loves Iceman and Barbarian so much, and just quirkiness of that type of humor. And like Liz, for example, from Iceman and Barbarians is very quirky and very like, dude, what the fuck? Like, that has the mouth of a sailor. Like, this is the type of reality TV in book form that it might not be for everyone, but it is very much for me. So Ruthless Fae was definitely better than ZODIAC Academy. Like I said, they start fighting back. You get introduced into the world more in the first one. So in the second one, you're kind of like already caught up to where the twins are. Like, you're experiencing everything through them, which is good for you to be introduced to the world. So I understand the order. So let's talk about the order actually, because the next book I read was The Reckoning, which is the third one, and then I stopped. Ask me if I liked that I did that. The answer is no. The answer is hell no. Not just no, but hell no. I feel like I've told you this so many times, but I still consider myself new to fantasy, okay? I feel like it's so new to me. It primarily started reading fantasy this like last year, beginning of this, obviously. And as someone that's like so new to the universe of a fantasy romance series, I was like, I'm gonna follow this order that it went viral on TikTok. I'm gonna know exactly what's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna make sense that I'm gonna start this whole series to go to this other whole series. It's okay. I'm just gonna trust the process. Narrator, she did not trust the process. Narrator, she should not have trusted the process, because I absolutely did not like going through this order at all. And let me explain to you why. Every single book that I've read so far of the series finishes in a cliffhanger, right? Some cliffhangers are crazier than others. Guess which type of cliffhanger the third book of the series, The Reckoning, has? A crazy ass one. Guess where you're supposed to stop and go to a completely different series, although in the same universe, right after the third one. Obviously, according to this order that I decided for some fucking reason I was gonna follow, okay? Listen, in some way, shape, or form, I understood why so many people vouch for this order. You are introduced to the world in the ZODIAC Academy as a newbie, just the way that the twins are. Like, they're humans that just found out they're a fae, so they're discovering everything with you. Like, you have somebody to hold your hand through it. But to be completely honest, if you know that the Zodiacs kind of influence the characters, and that each character has probably one, if not more than one elemental power, so from like fire, air, water, and earth, if you know those two things, you will be fine starting with the Ruthless Boy series, which is what I did after finishing book 3. I, to be completely honest, had a hard time starting Ruthless Fae, because the way that it's explained is that Ruthless Boys, or Dark Fae, actually, I said Ruthless Fae. Yeah, Dark Fae is the first one in the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac series. So the way it's explained is that the Ruthless Boys of Zodiac series actually happens, it's a prequel series to Zodiac Academy, because it actually happens 5 years before Zodiac Academy starts. So before the twins are even like anywhere near Zodiac Academy school, this Ruthless Boys series starts, and it's completely different people from the Zodiac Academy, other than one main person, which is Gabriel. It is a why choose Ruthless Boys, which obviously I love. We know I love that. So I kind of understood the order, as in like you get introduced to Zodiac Academy as a human first, and then go to Ruthless Boys, because everybody's already in the Fae universe, because the main character, the female main character, is a vampire. Her men, her white choose 4 dudes and 1 writer. He's a basilisk. He's crazy and psychopath, but a really nice guy. Dante is a dragon shifter. Leon is a lion shifter, of course, and who am I missing? Oh, my sweetheart, Gabriel. Gabriel is a harpy, and he is like all-knowing and very powerful. He's the most powerful of all of this Ruthless Boys series because he has, I think, 2 powers, and he has the sight, have visions of the future of certain people and of himself. And it's a process, just like any type of muscle, it's something that he has to work on. And also, as you see throughout the series, he has some spells and some other like blocks of his power that he also works through. And Gabriel specifically is one of the main characters from Ruthless Boys that shows up in the Zodiac Academy after book 3. So that's what I'm saying. I understand the intent from this order, but it did not make sense to me as I was going through, like, to completely put aside a crazy ass cliffhanger and go towards this other series with completely different characters that we have no interest in at this point. I was not involved or invested in these people at all after I had been super invested in after a crazy cliffhanger of this other series that it was like that left me adrift with no answers after that cliffhanger. So I'm like, bro, why am I stopping? So I personally, Louisa, will not recommend you stopping that. If anything, I recommend you reading Zodiac Academy by itself throughout the whole thing and then go into Ruthless Boys. But if you are like me and loves to go prequel first, even if they are published after the main thing, I would do that. If I could go back in time, delete everything I know about the Zodiac Academy universe, I would probably go back to Ruthless Boys first, binge the hell out of that series, become invested, and then go into Zodiac Academy. To be honest with you, the tiniest bit of crossover on the last book of Ruthless Boys that we have between Ruthless Boys and Zodiac Academy does not make up for the frustrating feeling that I had of having to stop Zodiac Academy and going towards Ruthless Boys. And it's not a huge spoiler. It's really just Gabriel having some type of vision that now that I know what happens in Zodiac Academy, I'm like, oh, that's why he had that vision for that reason. The payoff is very little for the frustrating feelings that I had. I'm come down from my soapbox at this moment. Thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk. I'll keep going. Overall, Dark Fae was so good as an introduction. Elise, who's the female main character, she's going through so much grief from losing her brother, Gareth, who all of a sudden dies, and the main reason of his death is overdose of this like fae related like drug that is absolutely super powerful. And she's like, I don't think that happened. I feel like I need to find the answers for this. So she's going through this while trying to investigate her brother's death and how it is connected to these main 4 guys, the kings of Aurora University and Aurora Academy, which is a separate academy to Zodiac Academy. It's like in the toughest part of Solaria. So it's like separate where all the crazy people and all the crimes are that the government doesn't really give a fuck about, but it's like the name says, ruthless. Like a bunch of people die because also they have so many spells to heal people. Like violence is rampant, okay? Like a lot of people die, a lot of people get hurt, a lot of fights happen all the time. But again, obviously, because they have spells, they get healed pretty fast, especially with Ruthless Boys instead of Zodiac Academy, because the Zodiac Academy, they don't teach, like at least the twins, Tori and Darcy, don't get taught the spells or the magic to heal until way further into the series. I think book 4 or 5 or something. But here, Ruthless Boys, they already know those spells because they're already a little bit more advanced. It's really interesting to see a whole new version of the same type of universe and the same type of magic, but in different characters. I love the humor that Leon brought. I know it was very obnoxious at times because he is as a Leo, I can say he is the most obnoxious, stereotypical ass Leo ever. The Leo shifters, the way he is, they have some type of like magnetism. That's a huge part of their powers. Like when they turn that on or whatever, everybody comes towards them. Everybody wants to do whatever they want to please and accommodate him, no matter what. He uses that a lot, okay? And it's so interesting to see her at least being like, I don't care about that. I do not want to accommodate you. Like, you're just a dude. And him being like, I'd like you, actually. I want to be with you forever. Another main plot point of this whole series is the rivalry, because it is, again, like I said, in a very rough part. Aurora Academy, where they go, is in a rough part of Solaria, which is ruled and divided by two main gangs. And the two main people that preside over and like lead the gangs is Ryder the Basilisk and Dante the Dragon Shifter. So they find themselves being into the same girl and having this huge like pull and connection to this main girl, but at the same time being like historical enemies. That's part of the Zodiac situation of it all. Just like they have fated mates, which is like Elysian mates, they have Elysian enemies, which is actually called astral adversaries, because I'm like, I know they have a specific word for that. It's astral adversaries. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically they are not just from competing gangs, but they like their dads were, there's so much hatred and so many like, oh, you killed this person, so our gang has to kill, and like blood for blood type of thing, that they kind of like inherited the enemies of it all, that now they feel like are always going against each other, but their common goal is to love and to satisfy Elise. And I loved that plot point, to be honest. I loved how that was solved by the end. I loved how further they came from the beginning of the series. I loved how that went. Again, just like every other book in the series, apparently how the Twisted Sisters write, the books are a little bit longer than they should have been, but I find myself liking that. I feel like I liked the characters enough to want to spend more time with them, even if I was still crying over having to leave my sisters, my twins, in that horrible cliffhanger. Gabriel, like I said, is one of the main characters that show up in the Ruthless Boys, that show up in Zodiac Academy later, and that happens with Shadow Princess which is book 4, but I'll get to that. So after I read Ruthless Boys, I was like, I am so invested in this polyamorous relationship of Elise and her guys that now I'm like, I know my heart broke for the cliffhanger of Zodiac Academy, but I feel like I need something light, rom-com-y. I need something contemporary, romance, and lighter, because it's a lot of death and a lot of emotions that goes in these books. And it was perfect timing, actually, when I was supposed to read my book club book, Deep End by Ellie Hazelwood. This is one of those books that have been in my TBRs since it came out. I literally bought one of like the first prints with the sprayed edges, the pretty sprayed edges and everything, and I had just been putting it off, and I'm like, what better? And I know a lot of my book club girls love everything by Ellie Hazelwood, as do I. So I'm like, what better way to read this than do in the community in the community sense, and do it with my book club. And it was so good. I gave a 4.5, didn't I? Yeah, I went to my review of Deep End, and I did give it a 4.5 stars, and I know exactly why I didn't give it 5, and I'll explain to you later. But I said Ellie knows how to write a down bad man like no other. Lucas, the man that you are. The only reason I'm not giving it 5 stars is that I wish we had a better resolution for the mental block she has, but overall it was really good. So basically, the premise of this book is a female main character, Scarlett Vandermeer, or Vandy, which is how they call her. She is a professional diver. She is a junior at Stanford and specializes in platform diving. So the crazy people, like highly talented people in the Olympics that jump off a freaking cliff and go like and fall into a freaking pool with almost no splash. Yeah, she was one of those. And she finds herself recovering from an injury and having this mental block. The way we equated her experience, me and the book club girls, was the twisties. I don't know if y'all remember when Simone Biles was like, I need to take a break from mental health because I have a case of the twisties, where like your mental block is so severe that your body, even though your muscle memory like remembers everything, your body doesn't respond to what you want because of that mental block, is what we understood it. So basically, she's having trouble doing this specific dive because it was the dive that she had the injury in. Also Stanford student, but also an Olympic medalist. He's a swim captain, a world champion, and an all-around aquatics golden boy. My dear man, Lucas Blankvist. He is a Swede. He's a Swede too, right? Oh, there's 2 books this month that I read that are Swedes. Oh, that's cute. Yes, because they have a beautiful scene in Sweden, actually. Oh, it's all coming back to me now, and it's so good. I don't know if you can see my tabs because of all the sprayed edges, but I tabbed the hell out of this book. I had such a good time. We all agreed in the book club that it is not as spicy as everybody made it out to be. Apparently, it is rumored that the first edition, like the first draft, was a lot more spicy than it ended up being. The publisher was like, whoo, really back in. It's honestly a big part of their relationship, how Lucas is a lot more dominant and wants to be in control of it all, and how Vandy or Scarlett is more submissive and wants to be out of her mind in a subspace, be able to let go of control once in a lifetime, which ends up to be in a sexual sense. And I loved how well they matched. I love how intentional Lucas was. That's what I'm saying, the man that he is. He's probably my favorite Ali Hazelwood MNC, dare I say. Not to say this is vanilla, by the way. They have a kink list right off the bat. Like, it's something that they talk about constantly. There's power play, there is bondage in some way, shape, or form, there is like safe word very much being like consented to and talked about. So it's not vanilla at all, but we did agree that we were expecting a little bit more. But I think it was because they told Allie to really back in. You shouldn't have listened to them. So yeah, I feel like the complexity of both characters were amazing. I loved seeing Scarlett go through the mental block and her perfectionism. Ooh, that was a little too close to my heart. But I love seeing her go through therapy for all of that, and her relationship with her mom or stepmom, which is like the main person in her life, and her aversion to being vulnerable and investing in friendships and having close friendships. That was also really interesting. She has a specific friend on here that is kind of part of the third act breakup, and I feel like that was very human. Like, that was done really well, and I loved how she ended up standing up for herself. Like, she starts very much as somebody that's like so awkward and avoidant and so into her own world, and ends up being someone that can actually speak up for herself. And part of it, I will say honestly, is given by how much Lucas pours life into her and how he allows her a safe space enough to be broken, to be crazy and like devastated over things that happened. And there's so many times that he's like, I'm here, I'll put you back together. And I'm 100% sure that is one of the tabs in here. So yeah, the only reason I didn't give it a 5 stars is, again, because I feel like the mental block was kind of like, she finally gets to the bottom of the origin of the mental block and source of why she's the way that she is and why she's been struggling with that. So yeah, that was great, but I feel like there should have been like physical ramifications of that fact. Like, obviously I can tell you the reason why I am the way that I am, but the actual day-to-day life complications is what I'm trying to see how you go about now that you know the origin of, if that makes sense. And I feel like that was kind of like glossed over a little bit, but it is a pretty short book from how much complexity, good of a job she did at exploring both of the characters. If you know, you know. The way he says, you had me in the palm of your hand since the beginning, in the palm of your hand, Scarlett, from the very start. If you know, you know. One of the most like simplest but most complex and heartfelt phrases ever. And again, Lucas Blankovitz, the man that you fucking are. I was talking for at least 7 minutes and I wasn't recording. What I was saying was, after a wonderful deep end book club discussion, I finally went back to Shadow Princess to continue on with ZODIAC Academy. For the month of May, I only finished Shadow Princess, and right after that, Cursed Fates. I feel like both of them are chunkers of books, so I will definitely continue on with the series in June. I'm not sure if I'm gonna finish in June because, again, just like I needed a break in between all of these chunkers of books, and I went to contemporary romance for that break, I feel like that might happen again, especially because there are at least, I think, 9 books of the series, and Shadow Princess is the 4th, Cursed Fates is the 5th book, so I'm interested to see how the Twisted Sisters are gonna like stretch out the plot line enough for former books. I have no idea how they're gonna do that. It is interesting to see the twins, especially with Shadow Princess book 4, them starting the yearning and the heirs and them becoming different people. Like, they're coming into their power enough to both the twins and the heirs, but especially the twins, because they are twins. Their powers are basically the same. They're both Gemini. Their astrological sign is the same. They're in the same situation. They were grown together. They were raised not really by people because they're orphans. They were in the system for so long, but they were in the same situation, right? To see them in an environment that, I was gonna say safe enough, because just like Hogwarts, ZODIAC Academy is not a safe it's not a safe environment, but in an environment that allows them to basically grow their wings and like have enough space to use their powers for something. It's wonderful to see how both girls take different decisions and take different actions, even in the same environment, having the same raising, right? I feel like that's the thing that I like the most when I see sisters or siblings in books in general, is seeing how well the authors know the characters to make their decisions different enough, but it makes sense to their characters. I think that was wonderful in Shadow Princess, and in Cursed Fates, I feel like the yearning was heartbreaking. The groveling took a whole different turn, and this is exactly what I wanted. Like the groveling and the yearning for each other that happens in this book, even this long of a book, it's exactly what I felt like I needed to like especially the heirs and the male main characters enough after that craziness of all the bullying that they did in the beginning, especially in the first book. This is exactly what I needed. I feel like they not only, even without like a full-on therapist or something, they understood where they're coming from, and they understood why they did what they did enough to know that what they did wasn't right, and they needed to make up for it, especially one of the main characters that I don't want to spoil. I might do a final video after I'm done with the whole series, but there is, like I said, a whole 4 other books, and I might take a break. If y'all want me to record a video about like my final thoughts about the ZODIAC Academy, I can. Especially because I feel like if I liked Ruthless Boys that much, I feel like ZODIAC Academy is going to be good, because there's so much more plot-wise, there's so much more meat, for me to sink my teeth into, that I feel like it'll be great. And then to finish out the month, I read 3 different contemporary romances. Like I said, I feel like I needed some break from all the heartbreak and plot, people dying, powers being explored, and revelations being made about the past and parents and people, and there's so much going on with Cursed Fates specifically. I felt like I needed a break, and the rest of the month I read, like, it was like the last couple of days of the month, I read a book a day, and it was amazing. I read Out of Her League by Avarani. I loved this book. This was a great surprise. I got an ALC, adventure listener copy from NetGalley. I really loved this. This was a fake dating situation where she was like, oh, you moved on, and I thought we were in game, but I was prioritizing my career, you're prioritizing your career, and we didn't communicate, and now you moved on. Guess what? I'm going to show up to this wedding that you're going to be at with your new friend, with your favorite soccer player. Let's see what happens. So yeah, Dr. Isabel Mercado, she is a badass doctor. She is like prioritizing her career and wanting to basically like live her mom's dreams through her life. And I loved the progression of that too. Like her realizing that her life doesn't have to be consequence of her parents' actions, not her dad's perfectionism and lack of empathy for her own choices, nor her mom's decisions to not prioritize her career and raise her. Like her lives and her choices should not be consequences of that, or shouldn't rely on those things to satisfy her parents' wishes. And I loved how the whole fake dating, making my ex jealous, was just a conduit for her to have that realization, but not the cause necessarily. It was just like the way things planned out. And I feel like that's really much life, right? You start with, oh, I just want to make him jealous, and actually like, oh, I found out something about myself that I felt like I needed to. Like that's going to change in a good way my next decisions, my next experiences, my next years, the rest of my life maybe. In her case, yeah, it did. I loved how real but how romantic that felt. So the fake dating and the forced proximity was so yummy. Their tension is really much like, you can't flinch every time I touch you type of thing, and they have to practice. And actually, since we're here, how about we make this a mutually beneficial situation since we're here in the wedding for a week? It's so good. And my boy is just head over heels for her, okay? I feel like he's also in a transformative part of his life, because he's been a soccer player, a really good soccer player for so long, but then he needs to take care of his late best friend's wife and daughter, which is also his goddaughter. So he feels responsible for them and to be present, but also he just had an injury. So it's kind of like a getting better or continuing this lifelong dream that I've had, but isn't that even still my dream? Or like, there's this new person in my life, and is it okay if I make decisions that it's not what the public wants, it's not what my family wants? You know what I mean? Like both of them had such nice growing journeys throughout this book, and it was so well done in such a relatively short audiobook. I loved it. I really want to read more of her books. I know she has another series. I think it's like The Heir or something, because her best friend that's getting married, that they have to fake date at, is also married to a really rich guy, and I'm pretty sure they have a book, and I'm like, I clocked that. I love a rich billionaire, because they were like, what's that called when you have to bid for a charity? You bid a lot of money, it's usually a lot of rich people, and they bid for like a date with this soccer player, and that's how they end up like spending time together, but all the money goes to charity. Lay low. Oh my gosh. I hate being bilingual, and then I can only think of the word in one language and not the other. You know what I mean. And basically, the best friend is like trying to bid for her because she's well off, but as a surgeon, but like not that well off. And the best friend's fiance, soon to be husband, comes along, and he's like, can you put her to rest? Like there's somebody else bidding for something. And she was like, okay, $1 million. And he's like, good job. And I'm like, what's your book? Actually, I want to read that. So I feel like if she did such a good job with these characters, I feel like I'm gonna like her other books too. So I will definitely look more into that. After that, I read 9th Month Contract. This is another arc from like Galley, that not the LNC, but arc that I've had for a while, and I have been putting it off. I've heard some like not so great things about the humor that she tried to put into this book, but I was like, I want to see how it goes. Like I actually am one of the people that kind of likes the pregnancy trope, and this way it's not a accidental pregnancy. It's very much like she's the 9-month contract, right? So she is becoming a surrogate for him, and he has a ranch, like a farm situation on top of a mountain, and she really likes animals, ends up trying to like, she's actually trying to be a surrogate to get the money to start a animal shelter. So it turns out that they end up living together, and it becomes his surrogate. So I was like, okay, this has good potential, but I feel like this was such millennial humor in the worst way. It was like she was trying too hard to be funny, and it ended up going in places that I'm like, okay, this is not funny, this is just irky, like this is uncomfortable, like we could just move along. Yeah, that's basically, I was trying to see what else I put in my review, and that's basically it. This book's funny premise had me starting with expectations of reading a funny and spicy feel-good book. Unfortunately, I finished it feeling like I was reading a rushed, unedited mess. It overall gave me a stronger ending than I was expecting, but it didn't make up for the disjointed writing of the characters. They felt too complex and too simple-minded at the same time. Right, so with like in between this very forced humor, it was kind of like, oh, I'm using humor to not show that I'm very complex and I have these deep thoughts, and these are coping mechanisms of rushed circumstances that I've had to live with, both the characters, but at the same time, like the humor was like making it not serious enough. Like if we're talking about serious stuff, then let's talk about the serious stuff and not make jokes about weird shit about the baby being a goat turd. Like really, you're equating the baby with a goat turd for 3 hours and calling and like lovingly rubbing your belly and calling it a goat turd? I'm like, okay. So I give it a 2.5. I don't know if I'm gonna continue. I liked the potential of the found family because he has three other brothers actually. 2 of them live with them at their like farm situation up the mountain. So maybe. Lastly, my last book of the month, it was his Tesoro. This was a like mafia, a good disability representation mafia romance. I feel like this was very like mafia light if you are kind of new into dark romance, or it's not really a dark romance to be honest, but it kind of is because people die and he kills people, but like it is a mafia. If you're new into mafia and you want something mafia light, this is a good start, just like Neva Altai's books that I really, really love, especially the beginning. The first couple books of this series are really light. They get progressively darker. This one, I feel like it's another example of this. This is pretty light. Even the things that like he needs to get information out of somebody, or he needs to like go and kill somebody or something like that, it's really like, anyways, and then he came back full of blood or something like that. Like she doesn't dabble it too much, which honestly I appreciate. I think seeing a disabled person being so taken care of by a gruff mafia dude was so nice. I feel like she did a really good job at that. As somebody that doesn't have a visible disability, I don't know how well I can speak to that, but I feel like she did a good job at portraying how disabilities are so volatile, right? Like it's so day by day. Sure, obviously if you have a stronger day today and you overexert yourself or something, most likely you're gonna have a harsher day tomorrow. But really sometimes you just wake up and you're having a rough fucking day. And I say that again, not as somebody that has a physical or visible disability. So I love that. I feel like the spice was also really good, inclusive of her disability. He literally buys a bunch of pillows, specific pillows that he has one at their house and one at his office and stuff stuff like that. I feel like it got kinkier than I was expecting, which I loved. So I feel like I will continue with the series. Again, it's not something like, oh my gosh, absolutely the best mafia book I've ever read, but it's a really good, like, short mafia light book that I will definitely continue, that has a good also potential to have a lot of good series, because there's obviously like every other mafia, there's so many other people. Like his I think the next book in the series is his right hand band, and I'm excited to see how his book is, because his name obviously is Romeo, so the FMC apparently in the next book is Juliet, and I'm like, I want to see what you do with that. And surprisingly, which I didn't know, Emilia Rossi is the pen name, a mafia pen name for Emilia Emerson. I think the Omegaverse books that I read at the beginning of this month, it's the same author, which makes sense. Like, even if it's in the mafia scenario, it's still very cozy. It's still very heartwarming. So yeah, this is basically everything I read in the month of May. As you saw, I feel like I had really good ups and downs. I feel like it was a pretty mood reader situation for the month, because like to go from Omegaverse to romantasy to contemporary romance to mafia light romance is pretty cool. As a good mood reader that I am, I literally had only the first book of the ZODIAC Academy series in the beginning of the month as like a TBR, because it was going to be a book club book, and I ended up reading 5 books of the ZODIAC Academy series and 5 books of the Ruthless Boys series in 1 month. So I feel like in a way I really want to do like a mood reader vlog, explain to y'all my thought process every time I go to choose my next book, because I feel like it's so unhinged. It makes no sense. Even to me it makes no sense, but I go where my heart leads, okay? I don't make the rules, I just follow them. Anywho, I hope you had a really good reading month. If you want more consistent updates, I do an okay job updating on my Insta stories, my Bookstagram stories. I am trying my best to also update my Storygraph more often, to be honest, and because I honestly prefer Storygraph over Goodreads, but I have both. But if you want consistent updates, definitely check out my Bookstagram, all my book stories, all my stories. I'm there all the time, and more personal stuff too. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what's your favorite book of the month and what you're excited to read in the next month. June is Pride Month. I'm excited to maybe get a couple of Pride books in there. I definitely have a couple of my TBR, but like I said, I'm a mood reader. I read diversely all year long. I'll let you know what I end up reading, to be honest. I have no idea. Okay, bitch, bye.